What's up everybody? And this video, it's all about winter photography, snowy seascapes, snowy winter images and things like that. I'm kind of walking out here in the middle of nowhere. We pulled over on the side of the road. Chris is actually walking back over this way. I see a tree that's probably a good, I don't know, 300 or 400 yards off the road. So we parked and we're hiking, or I'm hiking out there. We got a lot of really intimate scenes here that I'm passing as I'm leaving that I really love. It's like midday almost. It's like 11 o'clock a.m. and we just come from the Grand Canyon you guys saw in the last video. And yeah, just it's all about winter scenes, intimate details and stuff like that. So I can't wait to show you guys. When I get out here, I'm gonna set up and yeah, can't wait to show you guys. Alright, so what I'm doing here with this little scene is I'm shooting really wide. I'm all the way out at 14 millimeters and I had to focus stack, and what I did was I took two shots, one for this immediate little plant in the foreground just popping up above the snow. That's kind of my foreground. Because I'm so close and using that wide angle lens, that's kind of technically my foreground. My midground is actually my subject, which is these plants that are coming up above the snow. And I focus stacked, so one on the little plant, one on the main subject, and then once I did that, then I exposure blended, or then I took a couple of different exposures for the sky and the highlights. So I think it's a nice little scene here. I really like it. And also kind of a second part to this is I'm also using these leading lines, the shadows, because it's being backlit by the sun. The shadows are coming right out towards the camera, towards the lens here. So I got this little bit of foreground, I got these leading lines of the shadows, and then I have my main subject, which is this frost covered plant coming up out of the snow. And then I have, of course, the light in the background. Absolutely beautiful little scene here. Well, there's a barbed wire fence here. I don't think I'm gonna jump it, so I can't get to that tree that I was after, but all over this area here, there's all kinds of really cool patterns in the snow. And there's actually another tree over here that Chris is photographing. There's another one, kind of a dead tree with some snow on it behind her. So I think I'm gonna start heading back towards the road and find one of these little scenes here. And like I said, I'm really excited because I don't get to do this very often, and photograph these little kind of intimate scenes like this in the snow. So yeah, I'm gonna walk back and see if I can find something a little bit different. All right, for this one here, I have some nice little textures in the snow leading up to this little plant. Leaving out the sky, obviously, very minimalist type scene. I'm using these little lines as leading lines up to this plant here. I'm exposing all the way over to the right because there's so much white in this scene. If you guys have seen our winter photography tips video, one of the things I talk about is when your camera is looking at this white snow and it's predominantly a white scene, what's going to happen is your camera is going to expose to it like it's gray, so it's going to actually underexpose it. So what I'm doing is I'm exposing all the way over to the right as far as possible, and I'm taking actually a few different shots. So I'm taking one where on the back of my camera, the histogram I'm watching, and I'm going all the way over to the very right edge, just short of clipping it, and I'm taking a shot. And then I'm also actually going to overexpose by maybe 2/3 of a stop, just to make sure that I'm getting all the color, I'm exposing properly, I'm getting all the lights, everything in the shadows, and just like I said, an absolutely beautiful scene, and a very minimalist. One of those things that's just a very subtle scene that usually you don't see too much from me. I like the wide open scenes, the more dramatic type photos, but I'm really loving this kind of really small, snowy photo. It makes me very happy, actually. Alright guys, so I want to give you a little bit of a tip on these small scenes. These smaller scenes take a little more work to really get a good photo, and what I mean by that is you have to really kind of contemplate the photography, the scene, the subject, what you want to include, what you want to leave out, the type of mood you really want to convey to the viewer. I think that's extremely important when photographing these little scenes like this. It's probably taken me, I've been sitting here at this little spot for about 15 minutes and just kind of looking around. I kind of circled a little bit, kind of keeping enough distance where I'm not going to ruin any kind of potential composition I might have. But what I've really done is just kind of gotten down and I put a couple of different lenses on to see what things look like. I've gotten up high, down low. I've kind of moved around. I don't know if you guys can see from right here, but there's all my footprints everywhere, because what I want to do is give myself a bunch of options to get the best possible photo and the mood that I'm trying to convey. And what I've done is I've ended up with the 24 to 70 millimeter on, and then what I did was I kind of overexposed a bit, because what I want is a really white kind of high key type scene with just this just the subject of this little plant sticking out of the snow. And then I've also got my wide angle where I kind of did the leading lines and you know, just different styles and different, I really experimented and really sat here and kind of worked the scene a bit, moving kind of to the right and to the left, and just really giving myself as many possibilities. And this kind of photography takes a little bit longer to do. One, just choosing a subject, choosing your focal length, looking at the light, and also deciding on what type of mood and what type of photo you're trying to convey to the viewer.
I hope you can actually see me. I can't see myself there on, you know, the little pop-up screen, the little flippy screen of my M50. Because it's so bright out here and I don't have my sunglasses with me. So I came over from this side where I photographed a tree, and it was a beautiful scene. And when I actually walked out there, I saw that here in the snow there are some beautiful patterns that from the wind, you know, blowing, and then it kind of makes some beautiful lines. It almost looks like I would say, you know, if you're at the beach and then you have a wave coming up and it leaves a line there in the sand when the wave retreats. So what I did then is I explored the area a little bit further. I walked through this, maybe I would say half a foot deep snow. It got pretty warm, that's why I'm not wearing my gloves right now, even though I'm sitting in the sand, sitting in the snow. How I set up my composition was more or less the same as I would set up for a big landscape. So I'm trying to look for leading lines in the foreground and then something in the midground or at the end. What I do here is I don't use the preview and I don't use autofocus, because, so first of all, for the preview, what I do is I go on live view on my camera and I check if the exposure is more or less okay, and then I go one stop usually above that exposure just to make sure my snow is actually white, because the sensor of the camera sometimes doesn't read it right. And then secondly, I don't use autofocus, because autofocus, if you have a scene like this where it's almost everything is white and the photo in general is very high key, which means there's a lot of white and not a lot of black colors in there. Yeah, so then the autofocus can't really focus on what you want it to focus, and especially if it is like these little lines here in the snow, there's almost no contrast from these lines. Like little shadows that it casts, you know. So what I do is I actually look through my viewfinder. So I go out of the live mode and I do manual focus. And for a scene like this, for like an intimate scene, I do manual focus maybe like 3 or 4 different points in my photo. So I manual focus, looking through the viewfinder, manual focus on the closest point, and then follow that leading line of the snow here.